In the words of Kermit the Frog, it's not easy being green. Well, today, green doesn't have so much to do with the color as it does three little words: reduce, reuse, and recycle. For instance, if I take the ice that's left over in my glass and put it on my houseplants rather than dumping it down the sink, I've reduced because I'm consuming less water. And if I make an effort to keep batteries and aluminum and newspaper out of my garbage every week, I'm recycling. So Kermit was right. It's not always easy being green, but it is important. On this edition of inLife, we're going to show you the importance of reduce, reuse, and recycle by showing you the efforts that Quincy is making to go green. This program is brought to you in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you. Funding for art segments on inLife is provided by the Illinois Arts Council, a state agency. In the U.S., 77% of the people recycle something in their homes, but still we put 162 tons of garbage in our landfills every year. That's enough to cover 1,000 football fields piled 30 stories high. There are many benefits to recycling. Not only will it continue to save space in the landfills, but recycling saves natural resources and energy, and that's just the start. Sitting just south of downtown Quincy, Quincy Recycle was in the game long before it became hip. With a facility of almost 100,000 square feet, they work in both the residential and industrial industries. We caught up with company president Brian Stokes. Recycling seems to be on everyone's mind, and here in Quincy, you participate with the city in their recycling efforts, don't you?
We do. We've been working with the City of Quincy for over 15 years. The City of Quincy, for a smaller community, has always been a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of its commitment to recycling. Currently, there's a two-stream program with the City of Quincy, meaning that we pay the city for newspaper and anything made of paper one price, and non-paper items we pay the city another price. They collect about 200,000 pounds of paper items every month and 40 or 50,000 pounds of non-paper items a month.
Wow, and so here at Quincy Recycling, that's just a small part of what you do, right?
Correct. The City of Quincy is one of many partners that we have. It's a terrific contract, and we love working with the city. And but a larger part of our business is commercial industry and businesses, food plants, manufacturing, distribution facilities throughout the Midwest, where we'll go in and set up a whole program and diverting their material from landfills. We really act as waste consultants. We go in and figure out ways to reduce their landfill and increase their recycling rate.
And as a rule, companies seem to be a lot more conscientious, don't they, today?
That's been a big change the last 4 or 5 years, and especially the last 2. The green movement has really taken hold, I think, with corporate America before it will with the average citizen. And I think that's terrific. Businesses that used to want to recycle only those items that added to the bottom line are now coming to us and saying, we appreciate diverting this material from the landfill and the revenue that it generates, but in addition to that, we'd like to recycle the more difficult items, the green strapping or the plastic that goes around pallets and things of that nature.
What about Quincy as a whole? Is the city becoming more green in the way they think and what they do?
They are. In fact, there's a newly organized Green Commission that Quincy Recycle will be a part of, and we're going to work with the Green Commission, the mayor, and the City of Quincy to increase the overall recycling rate in the City of Quincy and also come up with more new creative ideas to get material diverted from area landfills.
As you look toward the future with recycling, how do you see things changing for you, or growing, or just being different?
I think our primary growth will continue to be acting as a consultant and working with businesses throughout the Midwest and diverting their material. Recycling is well beyond being a fad at this point. It's an important part of what we can do as residents to save on landfill space and save on energy cost. And from a commercial standpoint, what our customers for years and years and years have been telling us that they want to recycle and they want to do the right thing, and now they're stepping up to the plate and doing it in a big way now.
Trucks loaded with recyclables make their way here from all over the Midwest. And even though it doesn't always help a company's bottom line to recycle, the concept of being green is gaining support in the industrial world. Some have even figured out how to monetize their recycling efforts. What's one of the companies that you were surprised to gain as a client?
A couple of years ago, we started working with a company called Medline Industries, and they have 30 or 35 distribution centers across the country. They came to us, they wanted to recycle, they wanted increased revenue. We landed 4 or 5 of their facilities in the southeast and in the 2 in the west. And about a year into the program, they came to us again and said, now we want the increased revenue, we also want to recycle everything. Can you help us do that? And Kurt McLaughlin, who works with us in Chicago, has worked with Medline on over a dozen of their facilities. We're rolling it out across the country. They'll be recycling shrink wrap, banding, cardboard at their distribution centers from coast to coast.
What do you think it was that made them change their thinking on recycling?
Well, I think that they're a progressive-minded, environmentally conscious company to begin with. And I think that now I know that their focus is on keeping items out of the landfill, green efforts, sustainability. All of those things are extremely important to Medline, and as a result, they're seeing financial gain at the facilities and recycling a number of commodities. And they're an exciting customer of ours that we're happy to be working with.
You can get more information about residential recycling in Quincy by calling the city or going online to quincyil.gov. We all have it. We put it in boxes, pile it on closet shelves, even stuff it under the bed. What do we do with all those things that we no longer need or want but hate to throw away? Well, you can FreeCycle it. FreeCycle is a website whose purpose is to connect individuals who have things to throw away with others who can use them. It's kind of a high-tech version of one man's junk is another man's treasure. You'll find everything given away on FreeCycle, from computers and clothing to household items and, yes, even the kitchen sink. Here's how it works. Let's say that you're renovating a room and you replace your old ceiling fan with a new one. Post an offer on FreeCycle, and before you know it, that old ceiling fan will have a brand new home. If you think about it, it's sort of a three-way win. You don't have to find a place to put the old ceiling fan, the recipient is excited with their find, and you save some space in the landfill. Check it out at freecycle.org. Well, we've been lighting our homes for over 100 years with incandescent light, but right now there's a new kid on the block. Fluorescent lighting has been around for some time. Today, we're finding that it's making its way into the home, and not just in the workshop or the garage, but into your living rooms and your kitchens. With us to tell us more is Bill Stalder. He's the Manager of Marketing and Member Services for Adams Electric. Bill, we're seeing CFL all over the place. What does that stand for?
That's a good question. It's an acronym for compact fluorescent lighting. It's just the new curlicue light bulbs that you see in the stores and hopefully have in your home.
Yeah, if you've been in any of the stores lately and you walk past the aisles where the light bulbs are, you see this CFL everywhere. And you might have people might walk by and just say, oh, that's an interesting light bulb, and might not know what they are.
Right. Retailers are doing a tremendous job with giving them prime shelf space, because they realize the potential of these little bulbs, and they're trying to get the word out, and hopefully they'll catch on.
Well, how are they different from the regular incandescent bulb?
The biggest difference is, well, obviously they're going to look a lot different, but as an electric cooperative, we're concerned with energy use, and that's what these little guys are best for. They require 75% less energy to operate, and they last upwards of 9-10 times as long as an incandescent bulb. So it's energy use and just the amount of time that they last.
So if you look at the price tag in the store and go, wow, that's expensive, you can justify it by saying it's going to save me money and it's going to last a whole lot longer.
Right, and there's a little initial shock sometimes when you see the cost of, especially when you get into the bulbs that they're coming out with that resemble a more conventional bulb. They're going to cost considerably more But when you consider over time that, you know, you're not replacing that bulb, it will save you money, and it'll save you a lot of money over time.
So they're making a CFL bulb for different uses, not just to stick in your lamps now. For instance, where would this one go?
Just in a conventional lamp, maybe a ceiling fixture, even if it's rated for vibration, or just if it's not in a ceiling fan, you know, in a light fixture that the bulb is visible, and this
Right,
is
so if you
more
didn't want it
attractive.
looking like this.
Right, and that's, you know, that's kind of a cute look, but a lot of people just, and I could understand why they don't want them in their ceiling fixtures.
Right.
And then, you know, the bulb like this, if you've got the kind of lighting usually found in bathrooms, where it's just kind of that strip lighting, and these do look a lot better than the curly Q, and they're easier to clean, easier to maintain, and I think just a safer product overall. But again, they're going to run you a little bit more, but you know, it's worth it in the long run.
Right. Now, there is a difference between a cool light and a warm light with your CFL bulbs. Explain that.
There are different ratings for the bulbs, and you know, it's usually on the packaging. If it's going to be a warmer tone or a cool tone, we have some floodlights in our family room that I noticed early on that they have a much bluer, kind of a cooler shade, and then I noticed on some of the newer, the technology's changing so rapidly that you know, they're coming up with, you can't even tell it from an incandescent bulb. They have that nice soft white light that we all like, you know, of an evening when we don't want harsh light, or we're wanting something just to more for ambiance instead of maybe for a reading light. But you know, there's different, just like an incandescent bulb, there's different wattage, different you know, the brighter and the different temperatures as far as the cool or the warm. So.
Right. Now, there is a misconception that it takes a lot of energy to turn these bulbs on and off, and that it's best to just leave them on, but that's not true, is it?
I really don't think so. You know, if you're leaving a room, it's my motto, you turn the light off. If it's not needed, you know, it should be turned off. And with the fluorescent, it's not going to require any more, you know. You don't want to flip it on and off over and over and over, but you don't want to do that with any bulb. It's hard on the bulb itself, and it's just you know, not a great thing to do. But as far as using more energy, I think that's a myth.
So if a person replaced all of the bulbs in their home with the CFL bulb, would they notice the next month the difference? Is it that significant?
I think so. When you're talking an average lighting load for an average home is maybe 10 to 20% of your electric usage, and if you're reducing that usage with a bulb that's 75% more efficient than what you're replacing,
Makes sense.
over time you're definitely going to see that. Now
As they become more popular, the price of bulbs continues to drop. And according to the co-op, one CFL bulb prevents 220 pounds of coal from being burned. And if you've never used them, be patient. They need 10 to 20 seconds to get up to full strength. Time you can spend thinking about the money you're saving.
Energy consumption is expected to increase by at least 40% by the year 2030. Increased demand means higher prices, so the rising cost of energy is on everyone's minds these days. To that end, Quincy is trying to utilize one of its greatest natural resources in the production of electricity, the Mississippi River.
If anything in or around Quincy epitomizes sustainability, it's the river. And utilizing it to produce power isn't a new idea, as there's been a hydro generator at the dam in Keokuk, Iowa since the 1920s. Quincy's renewed interest started after a study dating back to the early 1980s was dusted off that explored hydroelectric power at the dam just south of town. Back then, such a project was possible but not practical. Today, the technology exists to make it a viable way to produce electricity and has become one of Quincy Mayor John Spring's priorities.
We think that we've got an opportunity to do something that very few communities have, and that is to invest in and try to build and create hydroelectric facilities along the Mississippi River that would produce enough power to help us with our energy costs, and certainly would produce clean, green energy that is a thing that is so important in today's world for the environment.
As with any project, there are procedures and permits. Mike Klingner from Klingner & Associates.
Local lock and dams, and we're successful in getting the permits. What that allows us to do is to do a more detailed study to see what the feasibility would be to install low-head hydropower generating units in each of those 3 lock and dams to look at the feasibility of selling the power. And over the last year, we've had a series of meetings with the utility companies, and we're getting a very positive response and interest in the amount of power we'll be able to produce, and that the cost of production looks very positive at this time. So we're making progress. One of the big issues, of course, will be moving forward to actually fund the construction of the project.
And for those of you thinking Hoover Dam, this project isn't quite to that scale. In fact, this is where the generators will go, at the very western edge of the dam.
It's pretty simple technology. One of the things that report in '83 stated was that by putting turbines that you can put into the river itself, below the earthen dam or the spillway side of these locks and dams, and if there's enough drop, meaning that if the water will drop at least a foot or greater into those turbines and turn the turbines, that in fact as the turbines turn, they will produce electricity. We would need distribution lines to take that produced electricity and put it into the grid. But the technology is pretty sophisticated now, and it's very environmentally friendly. The turbines that we would use would be horizontal in nature, and they would have a very slow turn ratio to them, but at the same time produce a great deal of electricity. Each of these sites would produce about 17.5 megawatt of power. What the easiest way to analyze that or to give a comparison is to say that if all 3 of those sites were up and running, producing around 17.5 megawatts, that is enough electricity to electrify the 16,000 residential homes in our community.
During the spring of each year and fall, when we have heavy rainfall, the gates are totally open, so there's really very little head. So there'll be periods of time that we'll not be able to generate power. But during the summer months, when we have our peak demand and needs for energy, that's usually when we have low flow and we have the greatest amount of head at that time. So it's a good use of what's already in place, and capitalize on that energy and use it for the energy needs for our area.
We've got to do something, and I think Quincy, Illinois is primed and ready to do something, to do our part. We're just doing a small part, but this could be a huge statement for using this type of renewable, this type of green energy, which is the cleanest energy of all. So we're excited about it, as you can tell.
The municipality's desire to generate and provide green power is part of a regional effort in exploring and developing sustainable energy. For Grettif's Pete Pullman, who has decades of experience in the utility industry, it's something he's familiar with.
So it makes a lot of sense. Hydropower, the river's always running, though it doesn't run at the same levels all year round. Right. Actually, the peak production is during the summer and the winter, which is when you need additional power for air conditioning and heating across the state of Illinois and the Midwest. So it makes sense.
That's a good fit.
Yeah, it fits good. Along with that, there's quite a bit of wind power being developed statewide right now. And most of the good wind is in the spring and the fall. So these two sort of offset one another, which is another component here. Basically, when you look at renewable energy, you're looking at wind, you're looking at hydro, you're looking at solar, and also if you want to include all the biofuels, biodiesel, ethanol, and all those things, they're all a renewable source that we can produce here in this area and use in this area.
Another renewable energy source that's gaining in popularity is geothermal. And for Quincy's St. John's Episcopal Church, installing that type of system as they rebuilt after a fire not only meant using less energy from fossil fuels, but meant less expensive heating and cooling bills. Todd Moore from Architectniques explains.
How was it that St. John's Church decided to go with a geothermal system?
Well, actually, when we became involved in the project, we were sitting around the table one evening with the church staff members, and Father Herman at the time suggested, or actually asked the question, is geothermal a possibility? And that's one option we had not considered at that time because we just did not think we had enough available land space to
Right.
put the wells in the ground. So it was actually his idea to explore that, and that's what we did.
And so the system you put it in, how did you put the system in given the space limitations?
Well, first of all, we calculated how much heating and cooling was actually required for the space. And then from that, we know how many wells we would have to drill into the ground to accomplish heating and cooling. So based on that, and then you have your wells that are spaced 15 feet on center as a minimum. We went out and took measurements of the front yard area, and we had just enough space to put the wells into the ground.
So how does the system work?
Well, basically, the ground temperature is pretty constant from 5-6 feet on down. It's roughly 50 to 55 degrees, which is ideal for geothermal. But the way it works is you pump water through 3/4-inch pipe, basically down each well, and we have 28 wells in the front yard of St. John's Episcopal Church. They're roughly 220 feet deep, and so
It's down in the earth a ways.
It's down quite a ways, right? And so what we do is we have pumps inside the building. They're in the mechanical room in the lower level, and those pumps pump water through each one of those wells.
Is it possible, just for kind of a visual aid, to draw out a little bit of how that system is set up and
Sure.
what happens?
Yeah. Basically, I'll draw a circle here for a pump. That's the pump that pumps the water, and it pumps water. Now you're down in the tunnel space right now, and you go outside. If this is the edge of the building, you go outside into the front yard, and then the pipes basically go down in the ground. In this case, 220 feet. Come back up. There's another line up here that attaches to, and this line keeps going. And what we call this a parallel piping circuit. And I'm going to draw just 2 wells here right now, but that's the water out, that's the water back. So some of the water goes down here and goes back, the rest of the water goes down here and goes back, and you do that 28 times. And so water coming out here at, say, 90 degrees will come back at roughly 65 degrees, 65 to 70 degrees, because the earth is cool. So that water comes back, and then where the real heating and cooling takes place is in what we call water source heat pumps, and those are the big boxes that you see sitting on the floor and hanging up down in the space in the basement. And that water goes through a coil in this unit and then goes back to the pump. Well, inside this unit are your compressors and all the refrigeration stuff that takes place, and it takes that heat, it puts heat back into the water, or it takes heat out of the water, and then here's where you have your fan system, and that fan system then blows air up into the church. If this were the floor, that's where your airflow takes place. So the air system is going around in a circle like this, and your water system is going around in a system like this, and all you're doing is taking heat. You're putting heat into this water, or you're taking heat out of the water to accomplish your heating and cooling.
So geothermal, is it becoming more popular?
It is. It's been around actually for quite some time, but it is because the first cost of well drilling, the well drilling is a big part of it, especially when you're going vertical into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
The cost per well is quite high, but it's actually that cost is coming down, and also with technology and the equipment that's used today, it's just because of the efficiency, quite honestly, it's almost twice as efficient as a normal home heating, cooling system. When you set a piece of equipment out on the ground like you have at home that you feel that hot air blowing off of in the summertime, that all takes electricity and fan power, and you're trying to blow hot air into hot air when it's outside.
Right.
Well, in this case, you're just circulating water. It's almost the same principle. You're getting rid of the heat like the fan does out of the air conditioning unit outside at your home, but you're just getting rid of the heat into the ground, and the ground is free.
Right.
I mean, there's no electricity associated with that, other than the pump that pumps the water around in a circle. So.
Now you have another project that you're working on, a building that is something you're calling a LEED certified building.
That's correct.
Explain that certification to me.
Well, we are, this is the Ray and Joan Kroc Core Community Center here in Quincy, and we are working on, I think most people are familiar with that it's a recreational facility as well as a church. The Salvation Army is primarily a church, but we are trying to achieve silver level of LEED certification. There's 3 different levels. There's there's 4. There's certified, silver, gold, and platinum. So there's 4 levels. And what that really means is, as we design the building, we're looking for ways to, it comes down to energy efficiency of the building, not just the mechanical systems and the lighting systems, but the skin materials on the building, the insulation. It's using daylight to offset, rather than turning your lights on in a space, there might be enough daylight coming into the building. But it has to do with material recycling. But having said that, we're trying to achieve a silver level that basically you add up all these points in all these different categories, and depending on which range of points you land in is where your certification is, and we feel very comfortable we can achieve the silver.
The Salvation Army has temporarily moved its operations over to Hampshire Street, while the new $40 million facility, which will take up the entire block from 4th to 5th and Broadway to Vermont, is being built.
We'll follow the Kroc project as it moves along. Well, that's all we have time for on this edition of inLife. We hope that we've given you new ideas and inspiration to do your part to make the world a greener place. For all of us, I'm Becky Cramblit. Thanks for watching. If you have questions or comments, email us at inlife@wsec.tv. This program is brought to you in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you. Funding for art segments on inLife is provided by the Illinois Arts Council, a state agency. For a copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 for VHS or $24.95 for DVD to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and the date the program aired. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.